Hey everyone, welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses, I think 35, maybe 36, I don't know. Trade deadline day, obviously. It's really cool that we were able to come on and talk right after the trade deadline. Of course, you know, trade deadline day does have its trade casualties, and Hockey Jerk has been traded for a Penguins podcaster yet to be named. We haven't, you know, the paperwork hasn't quite gone through yet. It's a little bit different than from the NHL where it's like a hard noon cap. We're still working out the paperwork, but Kevin Lacey wasn't traded and he's here tonight. Hello, Kevin.
It's pending a trade call.
Right.
I'm pissed off, honestly, but we'll get into that. And it's not because Hockey Jerk got traded. That's the best news I've heard all day. Just kidding, Hockey Jerk. But yeah, no, I'm pissed off.
Are you? Why? Why are you pissed off?
This trade sucks.
Oh, you don't want to.
Congratulations, we got a player to still miss the playoffs and go nowhere. And yeah, okay, that's great.
Well, I mean, Troy Grosnick and Brandon Polig weren't going to come up and play anyway. Oh, you don't need to trade. I'm sorry.
That was the best trade the Sharks made.
All right. I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess we got to start with obviously Evander Kane coming over. I don't hate it. I understand. Like,
I don't hate it either, but I'm pissed off.
All right. Fair enough. I don't know. I don't dislike it, and here's why. I know a lot of people have brought up the comparison to the Brian Campbell trade, and I don't feel like it's an apt comparison because the Brian Campbell trade was a straight up trade. Obviously, they were looking to re-up Brian Campbell in the offseason, like I think they're going to do with Evander Kane. And you know, and they didn't trade him, and they lost, and there was no conditions on the pick or anything else. I mean, this pick's lottery protected. It's, you know, it turns into a second if he doesn't re-sign. I'm not really upset about it. I mean, yeah, losing Danny O'Regan kind of sucks, but if you look at what the Sharks need now, it's scoring, and Danny O'Regan was having trouble just sticking on that fourth line, unfortunately. Will Danny O'Regan become a great player? I hope so. I mean, I don't dislike Danny O'Regan by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if you look at the players who you were going to, you know, potentially lose in any trade deadline deal, whether it be Timo Meier, Kevin Labanc, or anything else, Danny O'Regan's the guy that I pick, you know, and it's not that I dislike Danny O'Regan or I think Danny O'Regan's a terrible hockey player. I mean, it's a business, right? And sometimes in order to get stuff, you have to give up stuff. And I would rather see Danny O'Regan go than Timo Meier.
Oh, definitely. When you're phrasing it that way, sure. There's no doubt. For me, it's a matter of, is this team even going to the playoffs with Evander Kane? Because I still question that. And here's a guy who, now I did not get a chance to check the facts, but didn't Evander Kane go 30 in a row without a goal last season at one point until he scored against the Sharks? That must be why we.
Well, he knows how to win in the tank, being a Buffalo Sabre. Let's give him that.
Oh, is that's it? Yeah, Kane's had an okay season. I mean, let me put it in a more positive light. Would I rather have Evander Kane on the Sharks or Rick Nash? Anyone who says Rick Nash needs to get off the channel right now. Because I'm much happier having Kane. But I still think that this is a Danny Heatley situation. Sure, he might start off fine, and I hope he does start off fine with the Sharks. But what's going to happen a year from now? Are the fans going to sour on Kane like he has everywhere else that he's played? Like, if you had told me 4 years ago the Sharks were going to get Evander Kane, I would have been for this, for a potential first O'Regan and a fourth, I would have been elated. But Evander Kane, to me, has worn out his welcome enough times in the NHL because of just sheer stupidity and inconsistency to the point where I don't know if after the Sharks, Kane's even in the league anymore. So to give up a first-round pick for a player like that, I don't buy it.
I see. Here's the thing, though. I mean, I think the NHL is always going to have room for a 20-goal scorer. 20-goal scorer is going to find a job.
Heatley didn't.
Well, yeah, but
Heatley was out of the league.
Heatley, I mean, fell completely off though.
Yeah.
Like Heatley, I think the thing with Danny Heatley was his body just gave up on him early.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, he just, I think I think Evander Kane wants to play. I don't think Danny Heatley wanted to play when it was all said and done, or didn't at least have the drive. Like, you would think a guy with the talent that Heatley had, I mean, if he had the drive to continue playing, he'd still be in the league.
True. That's very true.
Whereas I don't think, I think Evander Kane's a guy who wants to play.
I hope so. He's only 26.
Yeah. Okay. So to clear up everything in the chat here, just because they're asking questions. So the trade as it is, and I'll just lay this all out for everyone so we know the facts as they are. Evander Kane comes to San Jose in exchange for a conditional first-round pick in next year's draft, not this year's draft. Very important. That pick becomes a second-round pick in next year's draft should he not sign as a free agent with the Sharks, or should the Sharks win the Stanley Cup. The chances of the latter happening, I don't see. The fourth-round conditional pick is also in next year's draft. The Sharks can push that draft pick to the later year, to another year, 2020, but it will become a third-round pick at that point. And then, obviously, the rights to Danny O'Regan goes to Buffalo, where I think, I kind of put a little quick jab at it in my article on Teal Town USA, but where he's reunited with Boston University other alumni, Jack Eichel.
That's right.
So I wonder if there's going to be any reuniting of that pair, because in Boston, I mean, Jack Eichel obviously was pretty damn awesome in college, and I know that college to the NHL is a big difference, but it'd be interested to see if they throw him on the wing there and see what happens.
Yeah, what's nice for Danny O'Regan is that he's going to get a top 6 opportunity that he never got with the Sharks. I'm not saying that he was deserving of a top 6 opportunity with the Sharks yet, but when he was used, it was 8 minutes a night on the fourth line, and that's not his role. And we'll get into the Rick Nash trade later, but sure. Ryan Spooner was traded out of Boston in that deal because Ryan Spooner's not a bottom 6 forward, and neither is O'Regan. So, I mean, making use of the assets, O'Regan was expendable because they weren't using him in the role that he needs to be in if he's going to be an NHLer.
Yeah, and obviously, the other elephant in the room with Evander Kane is obviously some of the things that happened, that have happened off the ice, and I think that, I mean, look at where there's smoke. I'm not gonna sit here and say that Evander Kane is this angelic personality that's just that's just been slighted. I think that when your skin color is a little darker than mine and you play hockey, you're going to be under the microscope more. I mean, you look at a guy like PK Subban, for example, who's supposed to also be this locker room cancer, depending on who you ask, terrible guy who donated $10 million to a children's hospital, worst human being ever. Now, look, I'm not trying to compare Evander Kane to PK Subban. I'm just saying that when you look at some of these guys that have character issues, Josh Hosang's another one. These players not all seem to have something in common? I'm just throwing that out there. Now, I'm not gonna just completely say this is completely a race thing and just Ian's playing the race car, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that people, sometimes people, they get a rep for something and then it doesn't really matter what they do. That's always just the assumption. And there's a lot, especially with the internet now and the 24-hour news cycle, I think there's a lot of stuff that gets thrown out there that is just thrown out there. And then because you look at a player's reputation and you take that for granted, Evander Kane's been arrested. Shit, I've been arrested. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you gotta, look at him. When he went to Buffalo, I think there was an issue when he first got there, but I haven't really heard anything substantial since. I'm not saying that, he should be forgiven for all his past transgressions. I just think that until he does something that gets him in trouble outside of the game of hockey in San Jose, I mean, I can understand how, I'm not saying you can't hold it against him, but I just think that you shouldn't until he, give him, I feel like, let him do what he's supposed to do and play hockey. And then if he gets in trouble, then I'll be fine. I'll be the first person to come out and say, yeah, this guy's a complete dickwad. But until that happens, I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know. All I can do is objectively look at this from a, you know, from a business perspective, right? I mean, man, I don't know.
Speaking of business perspective, and I still kind of want to touch into why this trade really does piss me off. But
Sure.
From a business perspective, I think this really is a situation of Hasso Plattner, the Sharks owner, saying, do whatever it takes to get us to win this season. And Evander Kane's not enough. But I think that's why Doug Wilson went the route that he did in getting Evander Kane, because I don't talent for talent. It's not the worst deal that has been done.
No,
Even maybe this year for the Sharks, but situationally, I just don't see how this improves the Sharks all that much, how it's much of a difference. If anything, I still think it's a deterrent because the Sharks need to rebuild their prospect core entirely.
I don't think they're ever going to do it, though. I don't think, like, that's the problem.
That's what bothers me. I don't want the Sharks to be the Philadelphia Flyers, where every year they finish 10th in the Eastern Conference, or in this case, the Western Conference, and they never go anywhere. And I feel like that's the direction the Sharks are going, because they won't rebuild, and they don't have the assets to make themselves a cup contender anytime soon.
I think that, yeah, and I get that. And I think, you know, and again, I know I had a long discussion on Twitter with Gen X about this. I mean, I can only sit here and analyze the team as it is, not as I want it to be. I mean, we could do an entire show of what we wish the Sharks were. I can't do that. I mean, I can, but I don't think it would be very compelling to listen to. I mean, we can look at the team as it is. I don't foresee under, you know, Doug Wilson, this team ever truly tanking and really rebuilding the prospect pool. Right. I think that they expect to get some college guys over next year to help the Barracuda and, you know, maybe get things a little bit in better shape there. But other than last year, when has the Sharks AHL team ever been good?
Right. No, you're right.
You know, but I look at Evander.
I mean, if the Sharks, go ahead, Ian.
I was gonna say, I look at Evander Kane as a guy who, like, look at, I'm not saying like this is going to make the Sharks win the Stanley Cup right now, right? And but I think also if you look at the age, you look at the fact that, I mean, the Sharks have been killed in 5v5 scoring this year. Their 5v5 scoring is abysmal. 14 of his 20 goals are, you know, Evander Kane's 20 goals are 5-on-5. I think that he's 26. I think that the plan is to sign him. I think that it's a trade not only for now, but I believe that the plan is to keep him around, because I think, look at the Sharks do need scoring at some point. I mean, yeah, you know, the kids haven't exactly filled the Marleau void, and I'm not saying Evander Kane's going to fill the Marleau void either, but you need something. Like, you know, you can't just wait for Kevin Labanc to be a 30-goal guy.
Right.
Like, you have to proactively do stuff. And unfortunately, with the way the Sharks are managed, I think this trade makes a lot of sense.
I think historically it makes sense, but futuristically, I don't know who's going to play with Kane. I mean, if they're expecting Thornton to come back and you feed him the puck all day, then yeah, maybe he is a 35-goal scorer, but that's not going to happen. And Pavelski is slowing down, as much as it pains me to say that.
Right.
Couture is doing fine on his own, that he doesn't really need to be with Kane. And if he does get paired with Kane...
Could you imagine a line with Hurdle, Couture, and Kane, though?
But what else do the Sharks have beyond that, though?
Wow, you don't need other lines. That's the one thing I've learned. You don't need other lines.
And that goes to trades such as this. They could have other lines if they'd stop trading all of their prospects and all of their picks. You can't do it forever. So that's my problem with the trade. Kane, hope it works out. Really do. Why would I want it to fail? But even if Kane's successful, I just don't see where this team goes with that.
Well, I still think, I mean, I still think that this is a team that's going to go into the offseason and try to plug their holes in the offseason. I don't I don't think they're done. Like, I don't think this is it. I think they've saw what they had from the kids. They moved on from a couple of them this season already. And I think that you're going to see them go and plug holes in free agency, whether those holes are, whether the talent on free agency. Look, I'm not super excited for, everyone has the John Tavares googly eyes. I don't think John Tavares is leaving Long Island.
I don't think so either.
JVR? Like, I'm not, that doesn't make me exciting, but that is a kind of thing I could see the Sharks doing, is going and trying to get in the mix in the free agent market and try to insulate some of these younger players so that they can, continue to develop a little bit and go from there. But I mean, look at, I don't know what Evander Kane's going to do off the ice. And I'm not condoning anything Evander Kane's done off the ice, whether he was convicted or not. That's not what this is about. I just think it's hard for me, because I don't want to throw stones in a glass house. It's hard for me to really rip on somebody for off-ice antics. That's why I try to stick to the on-ice stuff. Yeah. Because it's hard for me, really hard. I don't, I'm not going to say more than that, but I'm just going to say it's really hard for me to sit here and try and say, someone's career should be over, blah, 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 over accusations when, I just can't do it.
Yeah. Going to the chat, Laurel, unfortunately, I have no idea what you're talking about. So unless you're waiting for we had trades to announce, the trade deadline's over, so I can't really say we have a trade to announce. But
we do. I mean, we always have.
They'd have other trades to announce. In fact, other Sharks trades.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. The strip mining of the Barracuda, Troy Grosnick and and Brandon Bollig go to the Nashville Predators for a 6th. This trade makes zero sense to me, to be completely honest.
Okay.
Because yeah, it's a 6th-round pick. I don't know. Bibo's been really well, but I'm assuming Gahagen's gone at this point, because
Gahagen got released.
Right, because he'd have to go back to do his military obligations for not making the Olympic team, right?
I have no idea on that.
That's my understanding.
Either way, I didn't think Gahagen was any good anyway, honestly. So,
but so I think that he was released, and I believe he's gone back to fulfill his military obligations, which is fine. I get that. I think the Sharks are high on Cornash. Yeah. So maybe we see Cornash next season. I don't know what they're going to do the rest of this season. I mean, they're pretty much they're sucking the bottom of the division, are they not? I didn't check today.
Oof. I mean, the Barracuda were bad before this year, and I mean, it's even. I don't even know if Bollig has been playing for a while. I mean, he's missed the last few Barracuda games I've gone to, and I thought he was hurt, or maybe hurt, because you never know in the AHL. The Grosnick thing, I really think it's just a matter of the Sharks missed the boat to trade high-ish on him in the offseason. But as I told you on Teal Town After Dark last night, I don't think that was the fault of the Sharks. Why would you trade your reigning AHL goalie of the year? I thought that was
you'd have to do it mid-season. You'd have to do it at the trade deadline, and then tank the Barracuda's chance at anything in the it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't things, right? And then obviously Grosnick, started off the year. He got hurt at the start of the year, if I remember correctly. Yeah, missed some time, had a child. And look I love Troy Grosnick. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. And again, when I say things about these players, it's from a place of business, which hockey is, unfortunately. And we can't just keep all the guys we like. Troy Grosnick, hell of a dude. Had a hell of a year, but he had a hell of a year on an incredibly stacked Barracuda team. Hadn't really done much. I mean, he lost the net the year before to Aaron Dell when Aaron Dell dragged the Barracuda into the playoffs, kicking and screaming. Lost the net to Bibo this year. I don't see a path where that gets Troy Grosnick to be the next Dell, should Dell move on in the offseason. I don't see his path to the NHL in San Jose at this point. And that just happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why the Sharks traded him this year versus next year, because I mean he's going to be an unrestricted free agent after next year, and a UFA AHL player usually at trade deadline time is only going to bring back a UFA AHL player. So
Right.
I think that's a huge reason why Grosnick was traded. Was just it's a matter of, well, we can get a low end draft pick at this point for him. So might as well. Barracuda. He's not taking the Barracuda to the playoffs, because if Bebo can't even take the team to the playoffs, Grosnick's not going to.
Oh,
so.
I mean, not that it's Bebo's fault. I mean, that team is that team is just atrocious.
That's what I'm saying. Bebo has been fantastic,
right,
in spite of the Barracuda's roster. Like, no,
yeah. I mean, and I, you know, and again, I'm not trying to take a dump on the Barracuda. I mean, it's this isn't their fault. They were absolutely strip mined this year. Plus, add injuries to Rourke Chartier. You know, you lose your top D pair. I mean, obviously, that's not a good recipe for success. You know, you lose Joachim Ryan and Tim Heath. That was your top D pair. Your goalie, your AHL goalie isn't great. Daniel Regan is up and down like a yo-yo. You know, who's your best player last year? You lose Chartier. Some guys have some growing, and you had new guys come in too that, you know, maybe didn't fill out, you know, like maybe, you know, having Yevplovs around for another year wouldn't have been the worst thing.
Yeah, definitely. Especially considering the number of pro tryouts that the Barracuda have had to give.
Right.
I still don't quite understand what the point is of signing AHL players and then dumping them in Allen and then signing up pro tryout players over those guys.
I don't know I mean, at this point, it's kind of, you know, I'm sad to see. Like, I really hope that with the Sharks having the Barracuda in San Jose and having the fans be able to see and not just kind of out of sight, out of mind over in Worcester, like, I kind of hope that would force the team to kind of, you know, force the team to be held to account a little bit on the development system.
Yeah.
And now it's, you know, this is the way, like, everyone, you know, other than, you know, I think there's 1 year where I think like Couture was there, for example. Worcester was bad. Games. You know, yeah, like Worcester's was generally bad, and it was generally the same thing you're seeing now. A bunch of journeyman guys, a few prospects with no one really to play with that's on their level.
Yeah.
And you got to try and make it work, and it's not, you know, and I just kind of hope that next year you can kind of pull some of the college kids over. You get like a Gambrell, for example. I don't know. I mean, I just... You know, I hope that they're better next year, obviously. I hope that there's more talent down there for them to play with. And I hope that they plug some holes so they don't have to bring guys up. I don't want to see Rolf Balcers come up before he's ready.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the thing that drives me nuts is people saying Balcers needs to be brought up. But I mean, that's the typical Sharks philosophy that has rarely ever worked.
I mean, it didn't. You could probably in hindsight make the argument O'Regan was brought up too quick.
I think he was. I think Marcus Sorensen was too. I think the only players who were called up when they should have been were Ryan and Heed, and unfortunately, they're just not using Heed.
Right.
I think those are the only two. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, I'm always hopeful that, you know, they're gonna get some more. I mean, they've got a couple of really interesting kids that are gonna come over next year. I think if you can leave some of the kids that are there now down. And maybe patch some holes in the UFA market, then that's, you know, that could be the best thing for them. Is that going to help either team be successful? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, and I'm not super pumped. Again, you know, having Evander Kane come over. I don't think they're suddenly magically a contender, a cup contender finally. I mean, it might help them limp into the playoffs, which I think they can still do.
They could.
This team is still likely going to make the playoffs. I still think this team can make the playoffs. Like, should they make the playoffs? That's an argument for completely another podcast. I still think they can get there even before they brought in Evander Kane.
Before we move on to other trades, I do have one off the script question for you.
Okay.
And for all of you in the chat, thank you for joining us. And
yes, absolutely.
If you're new to the show, please subscribe. The question is, which player stayed on the Sharks that you're surprised is still going to be in Teal for the rest of the season?
Oh, yeah, Hansen.
Yep. Actually, that's exactly who I think. Hansen or DeMello, but I do think
Yannick Hansen by a mile. And I think the problem with Yannick Hansen was it took so long for Vanek to get done that when Vanek's out there, I think they basically have the same cap hit. Why are you calling on Yannick Hansen when Thomas Vanek's out there still?
Yeah, that's a great call because Vanek did take a while. In fact, I was watching the TSN feed and they were literally talking about what is Vancouver doing? Why? And then 19th hour or whatever.
Yeah,
Then
I think as long as
Thomas
Vanek took to get done, I think that really hurt Hansen's chances of going anywhere.
Definitely.
I see something about Gambrell in the chat, and I think you mentioned this too, that you hope he stays another year in college. The only problem with that is that next year is his senior year. I do not want to lose. I don't want Teal Tinted Glasses summer of 2019 to be is Gambrell going to leave? Joe.
Yeah, that's a good.
Are we going to continue that seed?
It's a sad state that we've gotten in with college hockey where, anybody's a senior and now they could jump. Like,
right, whereas get them over. Like,
I used to see.
I want Gambrell over now. I think Gambrell could slot into the NHL lineup today.
That much, huh?
I am that high on Gambrell.
Wow.
I think he could slot into an NHL lineup today. Would he be the star player? No, but I mean, he'd come along. I don't want to risk losing him August 15th, 2019.
I don't want to risk subjecting him to Peter DeBoer, giving him 3 freaking minutes a night and benching him half the season. That's what I don't want to subject him to.
Oh, well, I mean, that's
my disdain for Peter DeBoer on this show is well documented. So,
yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, we can move on to some of the other trades now. I think we've covered the Sharks trades.
Definitely.
Again, I think that from a pure hockey perspective, I like the Evander Kane deal. I think the Sharks made out like bandits in this deal. I do understand the off ice and personality concerns that people have, though, and I certainly wouldn't try to tell somebody not to have those feelings. That's the last I'm going to say on that. All right. I don't even know what are we even doing? Hockey Jerk's not here. We traded him to a Pittsburgh podcast. But they got Derek Brassard, and I'd really like to hear what Hockey Jerk has to say about how this is going to help his favorite team three-peat. He's not here. So I have to ask you, Kevin, what do you think about the Pittsburgh's chances of three-peating now that they've added Derek Brassard? Is it even fair?
Jeez, I muted myself. I didn't mean that. What I meant to do is, in true Hockey Jerk spirit, here's an avatar. So, Derek Brassard. That's a hell of a pickup for the Penguins. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I know Hockey Jerk's a huge fan of his, but I'm a big fan of it. I like the poll or the what Ottawa got out of the deal, though, too. I mean, Gustafsson and the picks, and they got Ian Cole, who they were able to flip today, to Columbus. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a win-win for both teams, both main teams, because I'm not really counting Vegas in that.
What, you don't like Ryan Reeves?
First round plus Ryan Reeves. And I do want to get to Vegas here before we get off the show, because they kind of did something big today. Pittsburgh's in a great position right now. I don't know, though. I mean, the loss of Bonino was huge, and Brassard definitely has more offensive upside than Bonino, and he does have defensive prowess as well. But I don't think it's an even fit, and I do think that the Penguins needed a more sideways to Bonino type transaction than they did, because the Penguins really didn't need that much more offense. They just needed to be more rounded.
It's one of those things where you think, like, you look at a team after the deadline, and it's going to be interesting to see how the chemistry sorts itself out, right? Because, like, you've seen so many teams and they look so stacked at the deadline, and then they just completely implode under the weight of expectations. And I wonder if that's going to happen in Pittsburgh this year.
I wonder if that's going to happen in Vegas.
See, Vegas, I look at differently. Vegas, I mean, pardon the pun, but they're playing with house money. They're not, Pittsburgh Penguins are two-time back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. There's a hell of a lot more expectations in Pittsburgh than there'll ever be in Vegas.
Yeah.
Even with what they've accomplished this year, I still think that, the expectations in Pittsburgh are there is nothing else. There's just winning the cup. Whereas in Vegas, if you win the cup, that's fantastic. But look at all these cool, pretty toys we still have.
Plus, if I recall, I believe the Penguins ownership's trying to sell the team. So coming out off a three-peat would really help with that.
I don't know, man. Just to give the thing. So this is a big three-way trade. Derek Brassard, Vincent Dunn, a 2018 third-round pick, goes from Ottawa to the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins also get Tobias Lindbergh from Vegas, which I like that a little bit for them.
I do Vegas, too. I don't know why he's bounced around so much.
Me neither. I kind of like it. Vegas gets forward Ryan Reeves, a 2018 fourth-round pick, which is Vancouver's, from the Penguins. And they also picked up some salary on Brassard, which spiked the deal initially. Ottawa got Ian Cole, who would later be traded to Columbus, as we said, for Nick Mortley.
Mortley, that's right.
Yeah, Mortley and a 2020 third-round pick. They get Philip Gustafson, who I like a lot. I mean, if goalie's not playing in the NHL right now, that is, that's a guy to watch for. And then they also get a 2018 first-round pick, a 2019 third from the Penguins. I mean, Ottawa definitely, one of two teams that really went in hoping to really tear it down. I think they did a decent job, and they're not finished yet, obviously, but I thought they did a decent job getting some stuff. So overall, I mean, I don't hate this team I don't hate this trade for any team, to be completely honest. Maybe for Vegas, I mean, they facilitated with their cap space and they get a pick out of it. I mean, maybe Ryan Reeves can protect the real deal James Neal in the playoffs. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Reeves is kind of a throw-in. I mean, but Vegas, still very much playing the long game.
Yeah. I don't think Ryan Reeves is a bad hockey player, honestly. I think he is, if there's such a thing as an enforcer still, I think he is the guy, because he's an enforcer who can actually skate and has decent hands.
Yeah, he's not a complete meathead. Like, I know I like to get on him. And James Neal does not need protection. I'm aware. I'm just being facetious, obviously. I'm aware, though. I just like to try and be amusing on this show. And sometimes I hit the mark, and sometimes we fail abysmally. Rick Nash went to Boston. The Rangers, and the haul the Rangers got out of this. A 2018 first-round pick, Ryan Spooner, who's actually on pace for a better season than Mr. Rick Nash at this point in time. They pick up the salary of Matt Bolesky, who obviously had to, be thrown in on the deal. Ryan Lindgren and a 2019 seventh-round pick. That could be anybody. That could be a Joe Pavelski. That could be a Pavel Datsyuk. I mean, seventh-round picks are huge, man.
I think the New York Rangers are one of the big winners of the trade deadline or the trade season or whatever. I like a lot of the assets that they brought in. I mean, I heard a great quote. I think Brian Lawton was the one who said, now it's up to the Rangers to, one, draft well, but two, to use those picks and not just trade away those picks. Because if they're serious about a rebuild, they need to build through those picks. I know that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and one of the criticisms, and to me, initially, I believe that New York was one of the big winners, but I've also seen it, put forward that they really didn't pick up any blue chip prospects in any of their dealing.
I like Ryan Lindgren. I won't say blue chip.
Yeah, but I mean, when you consider the haul that they got, I mean, they got a lot of, a lot of contracts that are kind of, and especially in this deal here. I mean, look, he took Matt Bolesky, kind of a deadweight player at this point with a deadweight contract. And maybe they can do something about that down the road, but Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I will hear that argument a little bit because I think, yeah, like, yes, if you're looking to, really at least, because you want the picks. Picks are good, but you also kind of want some players in the hand too.
True. But
so I'll hear that argument, but
yeah.
I still think the Rangers did very, very well.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things I really like that the Rangers did as well at this deadline, and they weren't the only team actually who made this play, but they traded within their own division, which you don't see. Or wait,
no,
Boston's not in their division, but they did trade with New Jersey, who's in their division.
They did trade with New Jersey,
yeah. But like plays like that, I don't think those are bad. If you're not competing for a playoff spot, I don't mind trading rental players to your divisional opponents because one, that's going to lower their draft pick down potentially.
Correct.
And two, you're stealing assets from your own divisional rival.
Absolutely.
So like a team like Toronto and Montreal, although Montreal's still in the playoff picture, but I mean, they traded Plekanec to the Leafs and they got a nice defensive prospect in Renat Valiev. They got a second-round pick, and Plekanec is probably going back to Montreal next year.
Yeah. Oh, but Montreal got to keep his goatee.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, I like that deal too. Moving, Plekanec to the Leafs. I mean, yeah, you're right. He's probably going to go back to Montreal, but I still like that pickup for the Leafs because I think they there's a ton of talent in that system, but there's a few guys that just don't fit what they need. And I think that's something you can look at where the Sharks, when they brought Eric Ferron, they have a lot of guys that, could fit different roles, but they really didn't have the guy to fit that specific spot. And I think that's the spot where the Leafs are in, despite the fact that they have all these assets, they really didn't have one that fit that specific need that Plekanec will fill. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, a lot of the grumblings around Toronto in the media this year has been how, I don't know if it's inconsistency or what. I mean, take Mitch Marner for example. Mitch Marner's been in the doghouse for a lot of the season and stuff. Wouldn't a guy like Tomasz Plekanec, be a he's a born leader in the locker room and on the ice. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who could help Marner with his, I guess, poor tendencies on the ice or whatever the rumored gripe is about him this season. Plekanec is totally a guy who can pick that up and how do I want to say it? Teach the young kids, how to play the game the right way with the right work ethic. Because Toronto, even though Toronto made the playoffs last year and they're going to make the playoffs this year, they're still learning as they go.
But Marleau adopted all of them, so they're fine.
Well, there's that.
Right? Moving on, Ryan Hartman goes to Nashville for a 5th-round pick. The Blackhawk gets Victor, I don't even want to pronounce it. Edgeshell, there you go. A 28 first and a 2018 4th. I think Nashville paid. they definitely paid, but I think this is one of those things where, it's the time of year where you have to pay, I think, to get what you want. And if you're Nashville, you're going for it. I mean, Nashville is just coming into the height of their power. I think last year was just the tip of the iceberg of what this team can do. This team can be competitive for a long time, and you got to start, you got to start cashing in when you think that you're at that point where I think Nashville is, and I think they think they're there, and I think a lot of other people probably think they're there too. That's when you start making moves to win, because look at, you never know how long that window is going to stay open.
That's right. So
I like it.
I like the move for both teams because, the Blackhawks get a first. You can't go wrong with a 1st-round pick, especially because the Blackhawks are one of those teams who seem to luck out and everyone's favorite player drops to the Blackhawks in the draft. Edgeshell's a solid prospect. If I recall, he's a big MF-er. I think he's 6'5", something like that. But a Sleepy Mofo said in the chat, didn't know Hartman was available. This, to me, even more than the Paul Stastny trade we'll get to in a minute, this is the trade that surprised me the most, because I was like, okay, what has transpired to make the Blackhawks want to get rid of Ryan Hartman? Because I thought he's one of their brightest, youngest players.
You know, I think it's one of those things where, too, though, we've seen them have to do this with a lot of players where, you know, they've got guys coming up. I mean, you know, Alex DeBrincat's had a hell of a season. You know, he's under lower contract longer. You know, this is the reality for the Hawks is they, you know, unfortunately they're younger, good players. You know, as soon as they're due money, they've got to, you know, or they're going to be due money in the near future. They've unfortunately had to move on because you got to keep paying Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews all the money forever. Not to mention Brent Seabrook, Duncan Keith, Corey Crawford, all the money.
Yeah. See how that plays out. Another Swede going to Chicago, by the way. I mean, talk about the Rangers liking their Swedes and what. But Vancouver, if you look at the Rockford Ice Hogs, they might as well just be Sweden West. So there's another guy.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean that does bring us to the Winnipeg Jets, and this was I think my favorite trade of the day. Maybe because I'm a closet.
Not Braden Shen's favorite trade of the day.
No. Paul Stastny goes to the Winnipeg Jets. The Blues keep 50% of his salary. In return, they get Eric Foley, a 2018 conditional first and a 2020 conditional fourth. Stastny is a rental. You know, I like this for Winnipeg for a couple of reasons. One, you know, try again. If you don't succeed, you know, keep going. There was rumors that Mike Hoffman spiked a trade to the Winnipeg Jets. They obviously lost out on Brassard because Vegas got a little devious, and I think Vegas got what they deserve now. But surprisingly, you know, we have to talk about this lottery protected pick too. Surprisingly, though, I mean, St. Louis isn't exactly out of it.
No, they're not. Although, you know, at the
surprises me.
What's that?
That is the part that surprises me is the Blues aren't exactly out of it. Like they're right there.
I think the Blues are in a spot that I'm saying I wish the Sharks would just say, give it up, sell some pieces, and if you still get in, then good for you type thing. I feel like the Blues are kind of in that role. They did the same thing last year. They traded Kevin Shattenkirk at the deadline, and it was like, whoa, you're a cup contender, and you're getting rid of one of your biggest defensemen just because he's going to be a free agent.
How is that? That's got to be demoralizing. Like if you're in the locker room, though, like how demoralizing is that, though? Like for me, like that, for me, I'm demoralized. You send one of our best players away in a trade and, you know, like sends a really, I mean, I understand that they've lost 6 in a row. But I mean, man, that's a gut punch from management.
Oh yeah. And that's why, I mean, the quote from Braden Shen, I appreciate that about, I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, who are watching the show, go just look at what Braden Shen said about the trade. Because he basically, this is a team that he's in his first year on, right? And he was not happy. So yeah, it was strange to me, but at the same time, you know, I picked the Blues to win the President's Trophy, and for 3.5 months, I was looking really smart, and boy, have they spiraled out of control lately. And you mentioned they've lost 6 in a row now. They're out of the top 8 in the West. So
a point out or 2 points out, I think.
Yeah, no, they're only 1 point out.
Right, like it's not like you're not Chicago at this point.
No, the Blues are almost in the anti-Sharks position of, when are you gonna go for it?
Yeah,
because they obviously are going for youth here. They got plenty of youth. When are you gonna go for it? No.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this trade for Winnipeg. Winnipeg's the Winnipeg draft pick is protected if they happen to be in 1 to 3rd this year for draft order. I mean, how does that even work? Like they would have to catastrophically fall apart to get into the lottery and then catastrophically have ridiculous odds of getting into the top 3 picks. Like, I mean, I'm guessing like if I'm St. Louis's GM on the phone, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm like, sure, Yeah.
Kevin Cheveldayoff. Oh,
No,
Doug
I mean,
Armstrong.
Doug Armstrong. Yeah, if I'm Doug Armstrong and Kevin Cheveldayoff, I was like, we need to lottery protect this pick though if it's in the top three.
They probably just were doing it to troll the TSN Trade Center panel. Give them something else to do.
Yeah, the 2020 conditional pick, if the Blues don't sign fully before August 16th, 2019, as he is a college, as he'll be a college senior at that point, they will receive the Jets' 4th rounder in 2020.
Yeah.
A couple of other. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say there's a couple of big trades. Probably the 2 biggest trades we haven't even gotten to yet.
I know. Wingles to Boston. I mean, shoot.
Yeah, that was it. I like that trade though for Boston. In fact, even though I think the Rangers are a winner on deadline week or weekend or whatever. I think the Bruins are too. I don't think I
don't like the Nash deal.
I don't like the thing with Boston is they were operating out of a position of power. They have tons of prospects. They have plenty of draft picks still. So their time, for some reason, I still haven't figured out how the heck they're contending, but their time is now. So go get Nash. They're not really losing that much. They get Wingles for very little.
Tell you how they're contending. They play in the Atlantic Division, which is a 3-team division.
There is that. And they signed Brian Giunta, which I do want to get to.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring it up now real quick.
Okay.
The Brian Giunta signing, I think, is pretty nice for them. And I look at some of the moves the Ducks made, and I'm very perplexed because Chris Kelly, I love Chris Kelly. I've always been a fan of his. But Chris Kelly I know it's prorated, but Chris Kelly got signed almost twice as much as Giunta did. And Giunta is, to me, still a much more NHL-ready player than Chris Kelly.
I am angry. Speaking of the Ducks, I am angry with how much I like Jason Chimera for the Ducks.
You do like Jason Chimera for the Ducks?
I do.
Okay.
I think he's a good fit for their system, and I don't like that I like it so much.
Okay. I don't think it's bad. A friend of mine, I hope he's watching, he really is unhappy with the Chimera trade, and I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I feel Chimera is the most underappreciated player in the league. This is the guy, he's 38 years old, and he only has 2 goals this year, so what a drop-off. At 37, he scored 20 goals. Like, he's not so trashy, guys.
No, yes, Father Time is catching up with Jason Chimera, and I accept that wholeheartedly.
The Ducks traded Chris Wagner to the Islanders Islanders, right? Chimera? Okay, so I didn't lose track of Chimera. Traded Wagner for Chimera, and it is kind of a slantways move. It's like, well, Wagner is kind of younger Chimera, really, but I don't know. I think the Ducks, if they ever want to give Nick Kurdelis a shot, Kurdelis, I feel, could fit the same role as Wagner after Chimera walks in the offseason or retires or whatever.
That's a good pull.
Yeah, Chimera's going to be fine, and golly, grizzled veteran if there ever was one. I mean, he's 38.
I just want to go to the chat quick. Vince G saying, as a certified Bruins hater, which I am in that club. I grew up, like, when I was a kid, before there was a team in San Jose with cool teal jerseys. I was a Habs fan, so I've never been able to excise that Bruins hate out of my system. But yeah, Wingles fits that system perfectly. Mike Neves with some breaking news. Apparently, the Sharks had a deal in place for Erik Karlsson, and I just refused to remove my no plate. I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Instead, you decided to trade Hockey Jerk to Pittsburgh because it was
pretty much right. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, they're trading me." No, it's not happening. We'll definitely get to Erik Karlsson before we get to the Olympics quick.
I'm still surprised that we have this much to talk about with the trade deadline this year.
I know, it's just it was so slow to start too. Like I went and had a nap, and I think it was AO on Twitter that said if I napped just a little bit longer, we could have got John Tavares. So I apologize for that as well. But yeah, I know I had a nap with my son on the couch, and because it was just kind of like nothing's really happening. I'm gonna go lie down with my son because he needed me, and then I fell asleep and woke up and we had Evander Kane. slept an hour longer, we could have had John Tavares, guys. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Let's talk about the Golden Knights getting Tomas Tatar for a pretty decent haul. I mean, for the Wings, the Wings were a team that I think wanted to move. This is one of the teams in the league that really wanted to move some pieces and really didn't. But what they did do, I mean, that was a nice haul. 2018 first, 2018 second, 2021 third. Sorry from the Wings. Vegas is flush with prospects, and I think that they're flush with picks rather. Prospects they're pretty good on too. And for me, I like this deal for them because Tomas Tatar is a guy that signed long. He's still signed long term. I think a change of scenery is going to do this guy wonders. I'm a big Tomas Tatar fan.
Yeah,
his last couple of seasons have been, yes, not so great, and I get the apprehension about that. But I really like this player. I think a change of scenery is going to do him some good. And Vegas, I mean, they have to ice a team next year. A lot of these guys that they have on their team right now are UFAs at the end of the year.
Yeah.
This is another thing where, yeah, they gave up some picks, but Tomas Tatar isn't going anywhere. He's signed until I think 2021.
Something like that. Yeah.
So
he's
not
a long-term deal.
Right. So he's not going anywhere. And the deal isn't money-wise. I don't think it's bad. And not that Vegas has cap problems anyway.
Right. Honestly, for me, yeah, the Golden Knights gave up a lot for Tatar, but the picks are also staggered over 3 years, so it's really not going to hit them that hard. If it were the Sharks and it came down to Evander Kane or Tomas Tatar, I would rather have Tatar. So I don't think it's a bad move for Vegas. The one thing that I'm really worried about with Vegas, you mentioned that they're playing with house money, but I agree, but I agree for completely different reasons. I feel like the Golden Knights are playing with house money, so don't mess with anything. Don't mess with anything. Even the Ryan Reeves trade, as small as that was, I'm still don't mess with anything because Tomas Tatar is going to now need ice time. And who's to say he's going to fit in that system with Gallant? If he's getting ice time, he might bump someone down who fit great in the system before and may not necessarily fit in the new role. So the trickle-down effect, I'm just really worried about for Vegas. And that's why, like, the Erik Karlsson talk of him going to Vegas, I'm like, wait till next year. Just don't mess with anything right now. You're the number one team in the league.
But I mean, again, with a guy like Erik Karlsson, that's, dare I say, I don't like using this phrase for a lot of players, but I mean, that's a generational defenseman.
Oh, yeah.
I think if you're Vegas, I mean, you're silly not to look at a guy like Erik Karlsson because
you still,
around him.
You're right.
He's better than anyone you have. Like, it was like, oh, well, did they want to give up Shea? Yeah, I give up Shea Theodore tomorrow for Erik Karlsson. There isn't a shark on the roster I wouldn't give up tomorrow for Erik Karlsson. Like, he's just that good.
Yeah.
And I feel like for Vegas, I like what they're doing because look, they need to think long-term for their roster, which they don't know what is going to happen there long-term with some of the guys that they have now. And two, you got to sell tickets. I mean, from a hockey side, I like this. From the business side, I like this. They don't have to win the Stanley Cup this year. Like, no matter what this team does, this season's a success for the Golden Knights. They could go in the first round, and this team's a success for the Golden Knights.
Definitely.
They don't.
I feel like they're in. If they were trying to play for the future, they still would have sold anyway, even as the number one overall team. And it's so weird.
You still got to sell tickets, though. I mean, you want to get people coming into the winning's going to bring people in. It's, again, you have to go back to that business side. You want to keep some of these season ticket holders locked down. You want to keep the interest in the team for last year. You tear this team down as its first place team. I mean, we talked about how you'd feel in that St. Louis dressing room when Paul Stastny. How do you feel as a Vegas season ticket holder if they just tear everything down when you're rolling into the playoffs?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think from
they should have been
Karlsson. I don't even want to think about it.
I just
would they still
I feel like Vegas should have just held the pace because I don't. I just worry about one guy because, I mean, the Sharks have seen it in the past where they've been a top contender and just bringing in one guy has
One too
messed
many guys. Yep.
chemistry. And then you're getting knocked out in the first round by Anaheim and knocked out in the first round by LA and knocked out in this, you know. So,
yeah, I don't know. Wow.
By the way, to the one person who put thumbs down on this video, go watch something else.
Yeah.
Like, seriously?
Rude.
Go watch something else if you're mad.
Wrap up with obviously the McDonough trade. And I'm going to bring up the trade tracker because this is where I got just tired of writing stuff down. I apologize. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, they get Ryan McDonough and JT Miller from the Rangers in exchange for Nemesnikov, which I think was a guy that was just he was the guy that was going to be going anywhere. Like I feel like his name was continuously brought up. His days in Tampa were numbered, not because he's a bad player per se, but just because of he was the piece that they felt they could move on from. 2018 first round pick, conditional 2019 second, prospect Brett Howden, who is tearing it up right now with the Moose Jaw Warriors, and Libor Hajek, a defenseman who I have no idea who he is, but good for him.
He was a top draft pick 2 years ago, last year.
I remember 5 minutes ago. Beyond that,
yeah, Libor Hajek was one of the top defensemen in the 2016 draft class. I just looked it up. Yeah, no, wow, what a trade. Yeah. This was my favorite trade of the day for both teams. I'm a
closet Jets fan, and I think that's why I still like the Jets one better. But New York did it.
I'm talking about from a pure perspective of each team got exactly what they needed. I really just like this trade. But wow, Tampa Bay, holy cow. And it's not even the McDonough thing. I can't believe the Rangers traded JT Miller because I thought for certain if Miller was going somewhere, then Braden Point was on their way back. I don't think Tampa Bay was ever going to give up Sergachev or Sergachev.
No,
sorry.
No, but I don't think so either. Why would you? I mean, unless you're Montreal, why would you?
Then you made a great point about Vladimir Nemesnikov. As soon as the McDonough to Tampa Bay trade broke on Trade Center, I said, well, Nemesnikov's going, because I had heard that Tampa Bay had basically was feeling there was no way they could re-sign Nemesnikov in the offseason. Because, I mean, remember the last couple off seasons, they weren't sure they could fit Stamkos in the financial system. They weren't sure if they could re-sign Kucherov. Good God, if they couldn't have re-signed Kucherov, after we've seen of him this year. So Nemesnikov was definitely the odd man out. But Steve Yzerman wins again.
Yeah. I like this trade. I like this trade for both sides. I don't think it's as lopsided. I mean, I do like that Point didn't have to go anywhere. I'm with you there. I don't think that it's as big of a win for Yzerman as it's being made out to be, though. I feel like it's a little more even than that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great trade. Friend of the show, Brett Howden is friends with Kirkland Liker. By the way, you guys, if you never checked out that interview, please go back in our Teal Tinted Glasses history and check out the interview with junior player Kirkland Liker. But yeah, Brett Howden, Team Canada, great offensive talent. And Libor Hajek, like I said, it was one of the top defensemen in the draft class 2 years ago.
Right.
So,
and I do recall this now that you have jogged my memory. Sometimes I know stuff and sometimes I forget stuff. And then sometimes I remember crazy things like Kevin Bieksa was looking for a house in San Jose when they almost traded for him. It's just random things I remember. I think, there's a couple obviously things that were expected to happen that didn't happen. Then we can move on to the Olympics. Obviously, Erik Karlsson was out there. Now, I didn't personally expect this to happen. I don't feel like there was enough time to get that deal done, especially when Ottawa's supposedly looking for roster players. I know my heart did skip a beat when San Jose was mentioned, and then I got trolled by Fear the Finn, who, just said that Braun was sitting, and I didn't know why. That I didn't realize he was sick at the time, so I just like let my brain just go crazy. So good job to you for the fin. But like because I honestly think like when you look at the Sharks, I think Justin Braun. Now I'm not saying that I'm not advocating a Justin Braun trade tomorrow or this summer or anything else, but Justin Braun is quietly one of the Sharks' best trade pieces, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is. So when he
is the best trade piece.
He really is. I mean, I understand that our defense is a little thin without him, but if you're bringing back a superior D-man like an Erik Karlsson, I'm sorry, Justin Braun, I don't even know your name anymore.
I love Justin Braun. Justin Braun has a lot of detractors, but I really like the game that he brings. But at the same time, he's like talking about Ryan McDonagh. The reason why the Rangers traded away Dan Girardi and now Ryan McDonagh is because these defensive warriors, they're on a different level from Braun. They're a level above Braun. But these defensive warriors wear down with all those shot blocks. Look at Zbigniew Michalek. Number of years, he was one of the top defensive shutdown defensemen, and I worry about Hjalmarsson being the same way too, where it takes a toll on you. At some point, it just, and I feel like Justin Braun, if the Sharks are going to have to trade someone, it should be Braun, and it should be soon, just because I worry about the longevity with just the amount of damage he takes.
Just asking the chat, is Braun a product of playing with Vlasic? I think it helps, but I think on his own, he's still a very good defenseman. Look at, again, like when you look at other top pair defensemen, I don't think Justin Braun stacks up very well. And I think that there's an element of truth to that. Is he bad though? No. Like, okay, yeah, he's not Erik Karlsson. So big deal. No one else is Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's still a damn good defenseman. He's still easily, if not, there's other teams where he'd be a top pair defenseman still. And at worst, he's a top 4 on any other team in the league right now. There's not a team in the league where he would fall into somebody's bottom pair.
Right.
Does playing with Vlasic help? Yeah, absolutely. Playing with Vlasic helps, but by no means is he terrible. We've seen, look at Vlasic can't solve all problems. We've seen Burns and Vlasic together. Didn't end well.
I did, even though the only way I wanted Karlsson to be on the Sharks is to trade Burns. The thought of Vlasic and Karlsson together was kind of interesting for me.
I mean, it's just like it's Erik Karlsson. I still think Erik Karlsson's going to move. I think that well is so poisoned at this point. I don't know how you come back to it.
Ian, did you hear Pierre Dorian's press conference?
I did not, and I'm probably going to have to go back and find it at some point.
Yeah, because he basically said Erik Karlsson will be traded at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean,
he GM'd it beautifully.
Yeah,
as I would say, like he never actually said like Erik Karlsson wants to be moved or we're moving. He was like, we didn't shop Erik Karlsson. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you didn't talk to other teams about him, Right. And Erik Karlsson really wants to be wants to be a Senator for the rest of his career, but it doesn't say that he doesn't want to be traded. It says he just really likes Ottawa, and then the best thing was
Tampa Bay Lightning for the rest of his life.
What was that?
I said Vinny Lecavalier was going to be a Tampa Bay Lightning for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
I mean, we've seen this all the time. Here's the thing on Erik Karlsson. I think that well is so poisoned. I think that, Melnick's really, really screwed things up there. He's a hands-on owner so when he took over the CEO / whatever he's doing now, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but this organization has hemorrhaged executives. I mean, when Daniel Alfredson walks away, there's a problem. Ottawa. Yeah.
Boy, it's so sad because for me, except for the Jets, the Senators are my favorite Canadian team. And in fact, I can't think of any other Canadian team I even like. So I do feel really bad for the Senators, and I wish them well, and I hope things turn it around. But
yeah, I don't know what they need. They need an atomic bomb to go off in their front office, I think, and that's horrible to wish on a
it sucks because they have like they're 29th in the league this year, and I look at that roster and I'm like, okay, I would like this player. I'd like Hoffman. I would like Peugeot. I would like Carlson. I would like even Zach freaking Smith. Like, like there's so many guys. But man,
that well has just been poisoned.
Yeah.
You thought, you'd think Duchesne going over there. I mean, he and Hoffman admittedly did find some chemistry down the road, but it wasn't quickly, and it was way too little too late. I guess we got to move on to the Olympics at this point. Any other trades that you were surprised? Any players that you thought were definitely going to move didn't get moved before?
Well, I know there was a lot of confusion about Mike Green. Mike Green did not get traded by the Red Wings, but it came. I don't know if this is news that has been out for a few days, but I first heard of it last night that Mike Green has been dealing with a neck injury. So, I mean, I don't blame teams for being like, no, thanks, I'll pass. It sucks for the Red Wings that they couldn't move him because they really needed to. And I had heard that the Caps were interested in bringing him back. But, yeah, that wasn't – other than that, nah, I can't think of
too little. I think this year there was just so few buyers and so many sellers. Like, there were so many teams that were looking to just offload guys to try and try and pick up, picks or prospects or whatever. And there's just, or in some cases for some players, they wanted roster players, which what contender is going to give you roster players going into the, here, have half my roster for this one really good player. And now I just screwed my chances in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's some GMs out there that are probably that dumb, but not very many of them.
There were two other acquisitions, and I'm just going to mention it. One, the very last trade of the trade deadline this year was the Avalanche traded Chris Bigras to the Rangers for Ryan Graves, and that doesn't mean much to almost everybody. That's a pretty significant trade, though, for a prospect standpoint, because Chris Bigras was a former second-round pick. He's more of a defensive defenseman. Ryan Graves, I don't remember if he was even drafted, honestly, but he was definitely just an out-of-nowhere prospect blooming nicely for Hartford. Big shot, offensive defenseman. The Avalanche had way too many defensive defenseman prospects. They could move Bigras. Losing McDonough, the Rangers, and Girardi last offseason. The Rangers now bring in Bigras. They bring in Hayek. So those are, they fill in that hole there. That was just an intriguing one. The other one for me, Chris Stewart picked up off waivers by Calgary from the Wild. Chris Stewart and Lee Stempniak, I swear, move every single March 1st-ish.
Do they live just out of like motel rooms? Like, wouldn't you at this point?
But I like the pickup for Calgary because I did think they had room for one more power forward, even though I know Matthew Tkachuk is on the team, and Michael Furlan's on. I'm messing everyone's names up now. Michael Furland is on the team, but I guess he got hurt.
He's hurt, yep.
I thought the Calgary had an outside chance at Rick Nash. I really did. Chris Stewart is no Rick Nash, but in terms of like a power forward type role, I mean, what did I say in the offseason? I said, Calgary is all left wings. Can anyone play the right wing? Rick Nash wouldn't have really solved that, but Chris Stewart, there's your right wing power forward. So I didn't mind that move.
It's not a terrible pickup on the waiver wire. So the Olympics just came and gone, and where do you want to start? Which side?
I was gonna say, are you able to discuss this topic, Ian?
I can, and I can tell you why.
Okay.
Where do you want to start? You start with the women's side.
Yeah, let's talk about the women's side.
Okay.
Because for me, oh my God, as an American, it felt so good.
As a Canadian, it felt terrible. No.
But as a hockey fan, like that game, it was so good.
I hate shootouts, though.
I hate it. Oh, absolutely.
I'm so annoyed
But
that the game had to end in a shootout. I thought it was a great game, and I think that it was a look at I don't have any shame from that game. I think that I like the Canadian women. They went out there, they played their butts off. Shannon Sabados is unreal, just unreal. And it's sad to me that could be her last Olympics as age catches up.
She's been around a long time.
She has. But they left it. She left it all on the ice. They left it all on the ice. Like I'm not ashamed of what they did. I mean, it was a hell of a run. I don't think that, I mean, yeah, the American women are gold medalists this year, but that doesn't change the run that they had. And I think that it's, it sucks to watch my team lose. I'm a Sharks fan. I know about watching my team lose big games. But I have to give my hats off to the Americans too. And I think the Americans, like, it's such a great story for them. Like the year that they had, when you look at, when they threatened to boycott the World Championships, to try and get basically treated better than they were financially so that they could do what they do. And I feel like, and adding that and then paying that off with the gold medal. I mean, it's such a great just story, right?
Absolutely. And I think that women's hockey needed USA to win this tournament because, for one, I mean, women's hockey does not get much, fandom, media play, any of that, really. So if Canada won again, Canada won again. We'll check back into women's hockey in another 4 years and see if something different happened, USA winning was it was such a big deal here. And the one thing that I was really upset about was that NBC chose to put it on their cable network and not on their national network. I mean, I get that, yes, it is women's hockey. It's not as big as the men's game or whatever, but it was USA versus Canada. Like, you're going to tell me that's not a draw over night 15 of skiing or something,
Yeah.
And when Ian, because I know you're up in Canada and whatnot, mm-hmm. When USA won that gold medal, all the media stuff, even the channels we get that don't even cover the freaking Sharks, were all over that US gold medal, man. The next day I went out to lunch to Gordon Biersch. Every TV had a different sports channel on, and every single sports channel was talking about that women's gold medal game and the USA winning. I've never seen U.S. women's hockey talked about in the way that it was. And it was just brilliant. And so, like, that is what that game needs to grow was that win.
But here's the part that really upsets me on that note, though. Because, and I heard, and you saw right after, and it was like, oh, first was the miracle, now it's redemption. And then some people even went as far as say, oh, look, it's a miracle. And it's like, and it's frustrating because I feel like what doesn't get told enough is how good this U.S. women's team really is. This is a one-sided rivalry where Canada just kicks their ass in everywhere. You go to the Four Nations Cup, you go to the World Championships, pretty much everything but the Olympics, the U.S. is held serve.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the part that really frustrates me about this is I understand, like, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, being on that Olympic stage, but it's really frustrating that even in their own country, that team doesn't get the due they deserve outside of the Olympics when this is a really good team. This isn't a miracle. There was no miracle here. Like, these were the two best teams playing off. This isn't a bunch of college kids beating, the Soviet super team.
Yeah. This isn't Germany almost beating the Soviet super team.
Right. Like, it's, like that's a miracle. This thing, like, and again, I'm not trying, like, this is me out of respect for the U.S. women's team. This team is a lot better than it's given credit for. And I think that is the shame of it all, is that, yes, you had to go out and, getting that Olympic win is huge. And congrats, to my hats off to them again. But the fact that it took that for them to get that kind of attention, when, look at the women's hockey, the World Championships are a best on best tournament. It's not a Mickey Mouse tournament that happens during the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Four Nations Cup is a best on best. Like, these tournaments are all best on best. They're not Mickey Mouse men's tournaments that you see, that we're going to see forever, maybe even with the World Cup being what it is now, we're probably still going to continue to see, Mickey Mouse tournaments. And with that, let's talk about the men's side.
Wait. I just want to quickly say, so one of the big things that I said a year ago, 6 months ago, I can't remember how long, but I had said the NWHL needs to capitalize on the NHL not participating in the Olympics.
Yep.
Overall, I was pretty disappointed with the U.S. coverage of women's hockey until the gold medal game and beyond. But good on the NWHL. Yesterday, they showed the Buffalo versus the the Metro. I know it's the Riveters. They showed that game for free in full on Twitter. And I did actually catch the third period of that game. And what a comeback by Buffalo, but the Buffalo Buttes, by the way. But there were it said the viewership, there were about 600 people watching, which doesn't seem like a lot. But I remember there was a game I caught about a year ago that was also being streamed, and there was maybe about 110. So even though, 600 is not a lot, that's still a 500-ish% growth. And it all stems from this Olympics. So I hope the NWHL continues to build off of this.
I think the one thing that women's hockey definitely needs, though, especially in international tournaments, we need to have Canada, US in the ring squaring off. And oh my God, there's Finland's music. Oh my God, there's Russia's music.
Oh yeah.
Like they need someone else. Desperately need that.
Oh yeah.
Desperately needs that. But again, I'm not going to take anything away. Look at that game. It was amazing. And if you look at when back in Nagano, and even I think Turin was the next Olympics, I wasn't a big fan of women's hockey because it's kind of slow, and the shots weren't. Man, they can play now. Like the way how much that game has come along.
Yeah. Since
it first kind of really got its first debut back in, I believe it was Nagano. Amazing.
It was.
Yeah, like it's amazing how far that game has grown, just as far as watchability and just the skill and everything else, like how far it's come.
Yeah.
But let's jump to the men's side, because obviously the US gets bounced early, which is unfortunate. Not completely unexpected, I don't think. There's some pretty potent teams there. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch this tournament. I watched a lot of highlights and I watched a lot of box scores.
What sucked for me was I watched half the tournament, and it was like the US bracket. I did not know until Saturday that Germany was going to the gold medal game.
Right.
Because I was playing catch up on that half of the bracket the whole time. And so I was like, oh, it's going to be Sweden and Canada, and then Sweden always chokes. Well, I was half right.
Yeah.
Sweden choked. They just choked in Germany. And then Canada, I could not believe. I know it's not Canada's best team, but that Canada team is still considerably better than the German team.
They were.
Just like the Swedish team's considerably better than the German team. So, man, what a freaking ride.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I mean, I thought that was the German thing was a great story. I wanted to like this tournament, but I couldn't get into it because it's not even like, I don't care about the World Championships, and this is worse than the World Championships. Like, just the quality. Like, I want best on best. The genie's out of the bottle. I want best on best. I don't care if I have to stay up all night to watch it. If it's best on best, I will do so. I think that the one thing that I want to see what happens is if next year, I believe they're in China, I'd like to see what would happen if the Olympic Games went head-to-head with some NHL games. I'd like to see what would happen.
How do you mean head-to-head against NHL?
Like on the same time, if the NHL does not go to the Olympics in Beijing.
Oh, you mean just in terms of time?
Game TV. Times? I want them on at the same time. I want to see. Let's see if the NHL takes the worst hit, or does the IOC take the bigger hit?
Yeah, I would really like to know the ratings output on that.
For me, I'm sorry, man. If it's a Sharks game, and even if it's Team Canada, but if it's a Team Canada, basically Spangler Cup quality team, I'm watching the Sharks.
Yeah. Well, I did. There were some games that went head to head against the Sharks, and I did not watch the Sharks games, honestly. But I'm so big into the Olympics. So.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't get into it. I want best on best. Like, I just feel like, like I hate this argument, like, oh, well, it went back to the amateurs like it should. Who the hell playing professional hockey in 2018 is a fucking amateur?
Yeah.
KHLers are amateurs? Swedish League are amateurs? No, they're not. They all make a comfortable living far better than anyone probably watching this podcast playing a game in another country. Like, they're not amateurs. Piss off with that argument. It's just dumb. Half these athletes aren't amateurs anymore.
Did you watch the Germany UOAR game?
No, I didn't. It was
you didn't.
I wanted to, but work and weird times, and just didn't work out.
That game was so exciting. To me, the U.S.-Canada, I think homerism played into it. For me, the U.S.-Canada women's game was my favorite game overall of the tournament. But boy, just the, Germany being there and actually competing. And then when you think about it, they were 1 second away from winning that game. And I'm not talking about at the end. I mean, Voinov scores with 1 second left in the first period to give them a 1-0 lead. If they just held on that 1 second, they won that game 3-2. But just the fact that it came to that, like, I guess it's the typical, I don't know, Russian confidence, or Marco Sturm, one hell of a job as coach of Deutschland. Like,
absolutely.
Oh man, and even I think one of my favorite Olympic memories that I can ever think of was after Germany lost that game. Marco Sturm, I mean, we Sharks fans, we know Marco's personality, happy-go-lucky, all heart. He brings his team in. They're sulking, but he brought them all in, and he just smiled at them. And just, you could tell the conversation was something like, hey, guys, you were, this close to winning. Like, it sucks that you were this close to winning, but you guys, I mean, Germany hadn't won a game. I know they won games in 2002, which that's still my favorite tournament ever. Sure. But they won games because they had a completely different format with preliminaries and all that. So they won those preliminary games. But in the actual competition of the Olympics, Germany, I don't think had won a game since 94. Right. Or something. So to come that close, the only thing was that heartbreak when Russia scored with 55 seconds left.
And I liked also the German players getting like photos with Kovalchuk and Datsuk. I thought that was cool.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, they did after the thing. A bunch of them got pictures with Kovalchuk and Datsuk, which I
got on down.
Oh, Datsuk's amazing. Yeah, I mean, like, look at these guys are guys that a lot of these guys from especially if they came from Dell. I mean, I don't think Dell's a terrible league, but it's definitely a step down from some of the other European leagues for sure.
It's a fun freaking league, though.
It's a fun. I'm not saying it's not fun. I'm just saying what they are. It's
definitely not. I mean, it's fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth best, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So I mean, like, so some of those guys. I mean, some of those guys were never, would never even get an opportunity to play against a Kovalchuk or a Datsuk. And I mean, it's nice that they got their medals, though. But I'm just a jerk, and I'm not a hockey jerk, but I am a jerk. And to me, I'm just like, yeah, you guys won gold and you beat the teams put in front of you, but man.
John Shannon had the best tweet that I was actually wondering, and I did not realize was actually true. Russia still never won a gold medal.
That's true. That's true. It was the Olympic
Soviets, OAR, the unified team.
I mean, I like that Pavel Datsuk gets this gold medal. I just feel like it, to me, like, I don't know. I mean, you beat who you get put in front of you. And again, maybe it's just because I'm so hard on this, best on best. And if you can't, it's just such a stacked, like, I don't think anyone, I mean, I think people were more surprised that Germany gave them such a go than Russia, or the athletes formerly known as Russian athletes, the artists formerly known as the Russian athletes, winning the medal.
AO in the chat says, because you were talking about them taking pictures, said, "Can you sign my silver medal, Mr. Kovalchuk?"
I mean, hey, it's the Olympics. It's, that's what the Olympics is supposed to be about, though, right? I mean, it's supposed to go, the joy of sport and stuff. I just, I don't know. Come back to me when you beat a real team, Russia.
That's why. That's why. Like,
not that the Russians weren't missing players too, but they were still far more stacked than the other team.
And that's why I even more so wanted Germany to win, because I did feel like this was the tournament for some other country to go far, and until I found out that Germany was going to the gold medal game and had thought it in my head that Sweden was going, I was like, oh man, someone else could have prevailed, and it's freaking Canada, Sweden, Russia, and but it didn't turn out that way. So I'm glad someone stepped up in the game.
My dark horse of the Finns did not do very well either.
What was that?
I said my dark horse of the Finns did not do very well either.
Well, that's why I know you can't even see the jersey really behind me, but that's why I don't have my Finnish jersey up, because I just, man, it's dark times right now for them.
Dark times for the Finns. All right, we've been here a long time. Okay, what do you think? Like overall though, like do you think that after this tournament, would you rather have the NHL included again, or should they keep going?
Oh, 100% the NHL should be involved. The only thing is, and I tweeted it myself at Kevin Lacey 22. I said, and people said this wasn't going to be a good tournament. It was a good tournament, man. The competition was incredible. I mean, it really was, because you didn't have the best players in the world. Because I mean, heck, the women's game, sure. Those aren't NHLers, but everyone loved that. So I don't see why the men's tournament was so bad. But yeah, the NHLers need to be involved though. Bottom line.
Yeah, I want best on best, man. Well, all the other sports are best on best.
Yeah.
You can't have hockey not be best on best. Like, are the best figure skaters in the world not at the Olympics? So of course they're at the Olympics. Are the best curlers at the Olympics? Yes. The best, go down the list: bobsled, luge, skeleton. Skeleton's awesome, by the way. I would love to do skeleton, even if I break my bloody neck.
Even if you'd become a skeleton.
Even if I would become a skeleton myself, I would love to do skeleton. With that, though, we should probably wrap it up, because I know we did run a little bit long. But with it being a trade deadline show and the Olympics, and I mean, how can you not go long?
There was a lot to talk about, guys. Thank you for watching and being a part of this. And we didn't get to the chat. I know you guys were really talkative in the chat tonight. We didn't get to you too much, but again, thank you for the banter. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be back next week. We'll have some other, it'll be weird for us because now it's like everything's just kind of to the playoffs now. So it'll be interesting to see what we will discuss next week, but we'll be back next week at some point. Maybe even, maybe I'll put a callback on that hockey jerk trade. Might get him back. We'll see. I don't know. He might like it in Pittsburgh though. They seem to have a pretty stacked team.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, and because Laurel wanted me to say we have a trade to announce, and we could still make trades. It's just, we could bring him back. It's just that Hockey Jerk won't be eligible for the playoffs.
That's true. That's right.
That's the thing. So,
oh man. All right, guys. We'll see you. I will, I always try to tweet out as soon as me, Kevin and Jerk figure out the next time we can do a show. I try to give you guys that information so you can clear your schedules for us. And we always appreciate that. I wrote something on Teal Town USA today about the Evander Kane trade. Please give it a read. Give me some feedback, please. I always love feedback on my articles. And I'm trying to, if you tweet funny things at me about trades, they might find their way into my article too. So there's that. Kevin, any final thoughts?
Who the heck's going to be the backup goalie for the San Jose Barracuda? That was the one trade I did expect for the Sharks. And
a warm body.
I think
that is it too late for John Root to go back down to the Barracuda and got some pads on?
Oh man. I mean, I really don't know. I guess they're going to get a college guy. I don't know, but that's still a ways away. Stephen Williams getting called up. Maybe. I thought they released him, to be honest, but I don't know.
You could be the next goaltender for the San Jose Barracuda.
The Teal Tinted Glasses fan contest of the year. One lucky winner will become Antoine Bibeau's backup goalie for the rest of the season for San Jose Barracuda. Sign up at tealtownusa.com and tealtintedglasses.com.
All right, guys. That's it from us. Thanks for sticking with us this whole time, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.